Okay, the screencast is for the formative assignment for 7007, that's the Annotated Bibliography. And the context for this formative assignment is within the 707 Learning, Teaching and Assessment module, where the first summative assignment is going to be a literature review and research design, and that's in preparation for an action research project which will culminate in writing a research report from an action research project where you'll have put an intervention into practice within your teaching and evaluated it. So more to come on that, but the Annotated Bibliography will get you engaged with how to select appropriate sources for your literature review. So first of all, what is an Annotated Bibliography? First of all, it's an overview of some of the research and other literature that's been done on a given topic. So you are going to be focusing on a particular aspect of learning, teaching and assessment. That's the theory and practice of learning, teaching and assessment, which is what we mean by pedagogy. Secondly, you're presenting that bibliography in an alphabetical list of sources. It's going to be using Harvard referencing conventions, which will be a slide coming up on in a while. And for each of those sources, you're going to provide a concise summary of the source with some evaluation regarding its value and relevance to the focus that you've chosen. So when you're selecting sources, you need to be asking yourself, well, what is the problem that you're investigating? So what's the area you're investigating? So initially, it's going to be looking at the aspect of pedagogy that you've chosen. And leading into where we're doing research, very often we'll have a question or questions that we're trying to answer through our research. So do you have a question that you're wanting to answer? And that's a good starting point when you're starting to select sources. And thirdly, what kind of material are you looking for? What kind of sources? So we've got academic books and journal articles, we've got government reports, policy statements and documents, for example curriculum documents like the National Curriculum Programmes of Study. We've got articles from popular press, for some news articles, and we've got other internet articles. So we need to be aware of quality of sources. So right at the top there we've got academic books and journals, which are edited or peer reviewed. So that people with an expertise in the field have edited those texts, who have verified the quality, right down to the bottom there with internet articles. And the typical example is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is open source, so it relies on the general public regulating and moderating its content. So Wikipedia is not viewed as being a reliable source of information, whereas at the top, the academic books and peer-reviewed journals on research, they're viewed as having a higher quality or value in terms of concepts. Not that you won't dip into appropriate news articles to illustrate, but we want you to be focusing on the higher quality sources. So what should you actually be doing? When you've identified your sources, and you'll be asked to identify for this task 5 sources, you're going to write 100 to 200 words for each source and consider the following questions. And use these as prompts rather than a template for what you must write. So you might first of all look at, well, what's the main argument of the source, and briefly restate that. What's the author's central claims or purposes? So are they expressing any beliefs or any evidence about the particular area you're looking at, or what's the purpose they're writing for? Who's the intended audience? So is it written for trainee teachers, or is it written for teachers in general? Or is it a particular age range like primary or secondary, or is it for a particular subject? Or it might be aimed at middle managers or senior managers or policymakers. So who is the source aimed at? And what are the key terms or ideas that are being talked about within that? So you might initially, as you're preparing, start to list some of those key terms and ideas before you write up your summary. If it's a research paper, what were the research methods used? So, for example, it could be interviews, questionnaires, focus groups, observation. It could be methods used to gather data for the research. And what are the author's conclusions? So particularly when we're looking at a research paper, those conclusions will come towards the end, and that'll be drawing out from the research, what are the implications for practice. And also to be making some form of judgment about what the strengths and limitations of the text are, and maybe strengths for your purposes, or the strength might be that it draws on a wide range of different perspectives, and again the limitations could be from your perspective. It might not be quite what you're looking for, or it might be that it is only looking at a narrow range of perspectives, and starting to think about, well, why that might be the case. It's also important to consider your personal reaction to the text. So is it something which reinforces what you believed or thought already, or has it challenged what you believed or thought previously? So it's thinking about, well, what's the impact that source or that text or literature is having on your thinking and your practice. And ultimately, you need to be making a value judgment. What is the value of the source in relation to your focus? And in this case, as I said, we're looking at an aspect of pedagogy. So the task itself is not a full-blown annotated bibliography where you wouldn't restrict yourself to a number of texts or sources, but we're asking you to look at 5 different sources, different types of sources. The first of which is a generic pedagogy book chapter. So for example, the Learning to Teach in Secondary School book, Capelese and Turner, which is one of our standard texts, would be an example of some generic pedagogy. Or you might then go to the stage 2 to look at something specifically subject pedagogy, and this is the example of the Routledge series of Learning to Teach, which links to the Capelese and Turner series. So that's the second source. The third source is a curriculum document or a policy document. So for example, programs of study for the national curriculum for your subject. And fourthly, it'd be to looking at research or journal articles, and those can be either online or printed. We have access to a wide range of online journals that you can access for free through the John Moores library, and you can log in through an aspect called EBSCO, or using your Athens your username and password to access Athens. If you're not sure how to do that, then ask the library staff. So don't just go straight to the website, and if you're asked to pay for it, just pay for it. You can access most of the journals you're going to need to use for the PGCE for free through the library. And also we have a range of printed journals within the Ian Marsh library. And finally, selecting a website. And so you want to think about the quality and validity of the website. So it might be something to do with a local or national educational initiative, or educational news and media like the Times Educational Supplement website, or something from your subject association. So for example, Design and Technology has a subject association called the Design and Technology Association. So each subject will have their own subject association. You'll also find more information and guidance within Blackboard under the 7007 module, and if you go to the assignments and submission section, you clearly see a link there for the guidance and the exemplars. So when it comes to areas of pedagogy you might choose from, this is just 6 possible. You're going to choose one area of pedagogy, and 6 suggestions might be assessment for learning, starts and plenary activities, group work, questioning and dialogue, teacher modelling and explanations, or independent learning. So don't be restricted by that, but that might give you some ideas. You might choose one of those as one specific theme, one specific aspect of pedagogy that you're going to identify your 5 sources for. So we've got an example here of what one looks like. This is a single annotated bibliography, so you've got the reference at the top, the Harvard reference at the top, with the summary. And in the guidance and exemplars download in Blackboard in 7007, that's the assignments and submission section, you'll see 2 full annotated bibliographies. The first one is not a particularly strong one, and you'll see there's some feedback on that, so you can see why it's not particularly strong, and then the second one is a much more effective one. So for each of those there is feedback which you can read and get an idea of what it's going to look like. So some thoughts on referencing. So it is Harvard convention, so you need to refresh your memory on using Harvard referencing, and there is a John Moores guide for that, which is very, very good. And you're going to have one list of sources in alphabetical order. So when you come to writing your references for your essays, don't just split it up into books, journals, online. Keep it as one list, because if you're choosing appropriate sources, they're all valid sources, or they all should be valid sources. Where you have a title of the same author, with the same author, or a number of different references from the same author, put the most recent first. Okay, so all sources should be included, including online articles. So don't just put a website address with a quote you've taken direct from a website. You're going to reference websites the same as you would for books and research articles. Where you're making citations within the text, so that's where you're analysing something an author said and you're acknowledging it, that will go in brackets. So the example here shows how you'd cite two authors, Pratt 2011, and then you've got the colon there with 11, that's the page, that's referring to a page number, and then the semicolon between Pratt and Hellier is showing that there are two separate citations. And when you are making quotes, you must make sure that you cite the page number. So the example there shows Duggan, 2012, colon 3. Now you'll see elsewhere that it might have PP or P than the page number. That's fine. The colon is just one way of showing that that you're referencing and citing a specific page number. Okay, so some examples of referencing. So this is a typical book reference where you've got the author, so surname followed by the initial, and then you've got the date of publication. The title of the book is in italics, so titles of publications are in italics, and then you've got the publisher, including the city of publication. For a chapter, it's very much the same as a book, but you can see there this chapter is written by Brunner, and the title of the chapter was Culture, Mind and Education. Now that's not the title of the publication, so it's not in italics. And then you've got the book was edited by Ilieris, so it says in colon, and then you've got the book that it comes from. And at the end you've got PP, so the page numbers, the page range for that chapter. It is important that you include that as well when you're referencing a chapter. For online journals, similar to book chapters, it's the journal which is the title of the publication, so that's in italics. So where you've got 1 brackets 3, 1 is the journal volume and 3 is the edition. So the volume tends to be by year, so yearly volumes, and then the editions within that year. And then you've got the page range for that journal. And just a little note, there's quite large numbers. It tends to be the page numbers go by volume rather than edition. And if it's an online journal, then you need to put where it's available from, so that the website address for the journal and when you last accessed it. And for policy documents which are online or offline, so this is an example of an online document, so you can see rather than the author, it's got the organisation, so if you can't identify the author or authors, the title again in italics, but this is an online source, so you get square brackets online, and you've got the available at. If it's not an online document, obviously you leave off the references for available at and the square brackets online. Okay, and that's finally where you can find our guide to referencing for John Moores. So hopefully you find that useful and giving you an idea of where you need to be going with this second formative assignment, the 7007 formative assignment, which is the annotated bibliography.